We are 11 days away from the NFL draft. We are in the final stretch. So what better time than now to do a 7-round NFL mock draft for the Kansas City Chiefs. But before we do get into all of that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, let's have some fun. It's here, Chiefs Kingdom. We are less than 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. That means all these rumors about trades, DeAndre Hopkins, all these draft speculations is going to come to an end, and we are going to see what Brett Veach, Coach Reed, and the whole scouting team have put together to make sure that the Kansas City Chiefs repeat next year. What we're doing today, and it's going to be a doozy, we are going to do a 7-round mock draft for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I've said it plenty times on this channel. My knowledge is not that advanced to know every single player in this draft. So what I did is I went to another mock draft simulator. I did my research for the players that were available, and then I did basically position a need and see how they fit the Kansas City Chiefs and try to fill as many holes as possible and move forward into 2023 and try to make every single selection to where they can be key contributors, whether they're starters, whether they're backups, or whether they are role players. Someone who can help expand this team to be better and to hold up that Lombardi again. But let's cut off all the nonsense. Let's cut the talking of the description, and let's get into this 7-round mock draft. We're going to kick it off with round number 1, and with my first pick, I decided to stay on the defensive side of the ball. You've heard me mention it time in and time out, that the Kansas City Chiefs can go in 3 different directions. If they wanted to go on the offensive side of the ball, they can go in the wide receiver position. But if they go on the defensive side of the ball, they can do defensive tackle or they can do edge rusher. And the fan favorite has been edge rusher, and that is where I went here today with Felix Uzomah at pick number 31. Now, it can be a stretch. I think the fit is pretty close. I think he is either a late first-round pick is what the Kansas City Chiefs are selecting, or an early second-round pick. So I don't think it's a big stretch by any stretch of the imagination. And I think he would be a good, solid starter for this team day one on the other side of George Karlaftis. Now, we know how Coach Reed, Coach Spags, how they do it. They gradually get their players in there. So Uzomah would come in as a rotational guy, but he brings a motor. He's relentless. He's a powerful dude, and he knows how to get after the quarterback. Don't take any note as well that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to sign a pass rusher this offseason, and it'll probably be right before training camp like they did with Carlos Dunlap. They might bring Carlos Dunlap in as well. They always bring in those veteran presence guy. So the veteran guy they sign, whether it be Dunlap, maybe they get Frank Clark back, maybe they get one of these old wily vets, they will be that starter, and then they will start rotating snaps with Uzomah or Karlaftis, and then you got a good, basically 3-headed monster. And don't forget about Mike Dana, because he is a beast as well. I know Uzomah is a popular pick if the Chiefs decide to stay at pick 31, and I wanted to mention here as well, I didn't do no trades. I kept them at their selections, which is very highly unlikely because I anticipate, specifically for day one, that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to trade up. They want to make a splash. They want to show why the draft is in Kansas City, and they want to make sure that they will be the one center of attention in their city, the star of the show. And best believe Brett Veach will do something if he can. But I didn't want to get too tricky because I'm not him. I don't know how to create trade packages, so I did the safe thing, and I feel like Uzomah at pick 31 is also safe as well because now you're solidifying that D-line and everything starts to shore in together. Now, as we push forward into round 2, I'm sticking to the defensive line, and I'm going to select Tua. Let me say it together. Tua Tagovailoa. No, you're going to see me struggle right here. Tua Tagovailoa. Before this video, I was saying his name like 30 times, and then you get live and then you mess it up. But Tua, the defensive lineman out of USC. Now, it'll raise a lot of eyebrows why I selected him here. And honestly, he might not be here. Again, when you do a mock draft simulator, you go off what they give you, and he was there, and I just started thinking. And then I started looking at his tape, and he has rotated throughout the whole defensive line. So when you see him, he is listed as an edge. He is listed as a defensive line guy, and he's also listed as defensive tackle. And if the Kansas City Chiefs slide him to defensive tackle, that would be a beautiful fit in my eyes. And we know Coach Reed, Spags, they have never shied away from moving people around where they think fits best, no matter how good they have been or what kind of presence they've seen. A la Chris Jones 2 years ago, where he started off as edge rusher. If they feel a guy like Tua can come in and be a defensive tackle, that might be a perfect fit. And I don't know how many times I gotta say it on this channel either. Defensive tackle, to me, is our hugest need because we don't have anyone under 2024 under contract. That's including Chris Jones, which I hope changes soon. But right now, I'm stating facts. And I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs most definitely need depth. Even with the guys they have on their roster at the moment, you got Chris Jones, Derek Nunny, Deshaun Wharton, and they signed a couple other practice squad guys that I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. I should never do that. But here we are. But nonetheless, we never had that basically Robin to Chris Jones' Batman, and I would love to see that. And then now you start to picture this line coming into twofold with Karlaftis, Chris Jones, Tua, you draft Uzma. You got a whole young line, and you can get Chris Jones signed, sealed, and delivered for the rest of his Kansas City Chiefs career. That would be so, so beautiful. And Chiefs Kingdom would wonder, well, damn, now we addressed the defense, but now we're letting wide receiver options go away. And that's been one of our main concerns this whole offseason was Patrick Mahomes doesn't have a wide receiver one. Juju left. McCall Hardman left. We re-signed Justin Watson. We brought in, come on. So you talk fast and you forget, guys. And, oh, wow, what am I doing here? Dude from the Giants. See, I'm not messing up that big. We'll throw his face on the board. This is how bad it's going. But as we enter the third round, I went with Rashee Rice. He was available there, so I went with him. And if you are familiar with the channel, he is one of my favorite prospects to watch. I don't know if he'll be there in round number 3, but the reason why I love him a lot is because he is an all-around wide receiver. Last year, he had his breakout year with over 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns. And if you can get him in round 3, I think that's a huge steal, and I think he can eventually be your wide receiver number 1. He's a contested freak. Mahomes can literally just throw the ball up, and he will win those 50-50 grabs. Also, he's not the fastest guy, but he runs a sub 4.5. I want to say it's like a 4.51 actually, which is no slight and no joke. He has separation as well. We talked about his vertical. I feel like he can be a threat in this league, and he'd be such a fun player to watch in this offense. And I think when you focus on wide receiver in the 3rd to 4th round, or even 2nd round, I think you get a better value than what you do in the 1st round. It's no discredit to guys like a JSN, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, who I would love in Kansas City, but you might have to trade up for those guys, which would mean you're trading away some of your back-end picks who can be key starters or role players for this team. As we've seen Brett Veach, he's very, very good as the draft gets later and later. So just because the Kansas City Chiefs trade a round 4 or round 5 to move up into the round 1, people are like, oh, it was just a 4th round pick, a 5th round pick. We've seen those picks become Jalen Watson, Isaiah Pacheco, Leo Chanel, so on. So I don't know if I feel comfortable moving those just because I know Brett Veach's strength is in the middle to end of this draft. We just getting started on the offensive side of the ball. As we enter the 4th round, I'm going to go to the tight end position, and I'm going to the tight end out of Old Dominion, Zach Kuntz. And honestly, he's an athletic freak. And if it wasn't for an unfortunate injury last year, his draft stock may have boosted him up to a 2nd, maybe even 1st round pick. We've seen all these tight ends and their athletic ability in this draft alone. And I would be surprised if Kansas City just ignores that because they have a Travis Kelce, a Jody Fortson, and a Noah Gray. And maybe in the 3rd and 4th round is their primetime spot to get a guy. And if you look at a guy like Zach Kuntz, I think it's got Andy Reid and Brett Veach's name all over it, where it's an under-radar guy, but the hype is starting to build up. and he had a perfect 10 RAS score as well. So it just shows you what kind of athletic ability the dude has, and maybe he can be molded into a future tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs when Travis Kelce finally retires, which is hopefully no time soon. But even with Travis Kelce on the field, we love Jody Fortson and we love Noah Gray, and we hope for them to take the next step. But we have to see it to believe it. And next year will be a huge testament to what they can do. And if Coach Reed has to bring someone in who may be more athletically gifted, like a Kuntz out there, you may have your 2 tight end set package there. It's going to be interesting to see how Coach Reed does with this offense, because no matter what year it is and no matter how old he gets, he's always got these new mindset games that will keep defensive coordinators sleepless at night. So I'm not questioning the offense whatsoever, but I know he's going to add these pieces that go back and forth, and we're going to be loving week 1. And speaking of additional pieces, we're sticking in the 4th round. We're going to focus on running back now. A lot of Chiefs Kingdom may think it's early, but at the end of the day, the Kansas City Chiefs just have Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire under contract, and right now, Chiefs Kingdom is shoving Clyde Edwards-Helaire out the door. So you're just going to focus on Isaiah Pacheco. So I'm going to focus on the Kansas City Chiefs in the 4th round, drafting Zach Evans out of Ole Miss. The dude is explosive. He is fun to watch, and he knows how to find a hole, and he just basically, once he finds it, he's gone. He has that type of speed. It may not be the initial burst, but it's like that breakaway speed to where you're not going to catch him in the open field. And also, he has really, really great hands. And we also got to focus on, as well as Chiefs Kingdom is begging and pleading for the Kansas City Chiefs to re-sign Jerick McKinnon. But as hopeful as we all are with that, and I really hope we do, I wouldn't be surprised if the Kansas City Chiefs go this route and draft a young guy to pair up with Isaiah Pacheco, and then you have your 2-headed monster there, instead of signing an old vet like Jerick McKinnon, who is 31 years old. I know, it sounds cruel. It sounds unfortunate. Specifically for a guy like Jerick McKinnon, who has produced 9 touchdowns last year and was a huge testament and a part of to why the Kansas City Chiefs are holding up a Lombardi. But at the end of the day, it's a business. So I can see why the Kansas City Chiefs might not re-sign him. But also, I'm hopeful that they do. Even if they draft a guy in the 4th or 5th round, or so on, they can bring Jet McKinnon back in before training camp and then just get those wheels running. And then you have Isaiah Pacheco, you have a young stud that you draft, and you have Jet McKinnon. And that's your 3-headed monster. And I didn't mention CEH. He is on the roster, and we should account for him, because at the end of the day, we do not know what the Kansas City Chiefs are going to do. So as long as he's here, we got to account for him. Until he is traded or until the Kansas City Chiefs say otherwise, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, when healthy, even early in the portions of last year, played a huge part. He was very, very productive as well, scoring touchdowns. He definitely did not look like Isaiah Pacheco, but at the end of the day, if Reed can get something out of CEH, he will be on this roster. And y'all thought I was done with the offensive side of the ball? Nah, nowhere close. In the 4th round still, we going back to the wide receiver position. We are selecting Charlie Jones out of Purdue. This dude, I think he's one of the most underrated wide receivers, but again, it's someone whose stock is slowly starting to get up as the draft inches closer and closer. He's got hands that are literally like a magnet. He knows how to catch the football. He makes any contested grabs. He's a good route runner. He's everything you want in a wide receiver. And I know a lot of Chiefs Kingdom kind of, I don't want to say go against me against Rashee Rice, but every time I mention him, it's like, you can get better guys. I think the value of a Charlie Jones in the 4th or 5th round, Chiefs Kingdom will be excited about. And then if you draft a Rashee Rice and then a Charlie Jones, now you're cooking something in that wide receiver room, and you got a good young core, young depth too, with Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, Richie James Jr. See, it clicks eventually. And then you draft a guy like Rashee Rice, Charlie Jones, and then you still got MVS. That could be a solid core. I think the main question that we got to focus on with the Kansas City Chiefs moving forward is, do they draft 1 wide receiver in this draft, or are they going to draft 2? I'm leaning towards they draft 2, but you let me know, Chiefs Kingdom. Do you think they're drafting 1 or 2? It's been a while since we've seen them draft multiple receivers in a draft, so it'll definitely be interesting. Now, as we enter see, now I'm getting lost here. It's either the 5th or 6th round. It's going to be posted right here. We're going to keep up to date and keep it on track. But we got this far in the draft, and the Kansas City Chiefs still haven't addressed the offensive line. And that may shock Chiefs Kingdom a little bit. But at the end of the day, I always say, you got to listen to what Brett Veach says. You got to listen to the reports that are coming out and what Coach Reed is preaching as well. They believe Jawan Taylor is their left tackle, and they are still holding hope that Lucas Niang will be their right tackle. And if they get a guy, Lucas Niang has first cracks, and that's Lucas Niang's job to lose. So I don't see the Kansas City Chiefs heavily investing in the offensive line, definitely not in the first round. They could if a guy falls to them that they like, but they're not going to trade up for a guy. I think it can start getting interesting in the 2nd and 3rd round. But right here, I think I'm in the 6th round. Again, we'll get this corrected. But I have him selecting right tackle out of Oklahoma, Wanya Morris. And he's been a solid right tackle for Oklahoma. And I think this is good depth as well. And I think it kind of lights a little fire under Lucas Niang to be like, your job isn't safe. You need to prove yourself. And I think that's something Andrew Wiley did last year. But unfortunately, Lucas Niang got hurt. And that's the thing we've been dealing with a lot with Lucas Niang. He has potential. He even showed it in college too, where he was basically a great pass protector and no one could get around him. We haven't had Lucas Niang fully healthy. We're crossing our fingers, literally, that if Lucas Niang is healthy, we can see what he can do at the NFL level. But for someone like Morris, he does struggle a bit in pass protecting, which will drop his draft status, but he excels in the run blocking. He is a big dude as well. And I think it's huge to have someone who excels in the run blocking. Definitely when you pair him with someone like Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey. See when you talk so fast, you be messing up your words. Creed Humphrey, Joe Tooney, and Jawan Taylor. Something they all do very well is run blocking. So he would mesh very well in that line. And Isaiah Pacheco, who would just be like, thank you, thank you, thank you. But now as we move forward to our next pick, that's enough of the offense. We had 17 picks in a row. Let's go back to the defensive side of the ball, and we're going to go into that defensive back room, and we're going to focus on cornerback. And this is another guy. I don't believe he'll be here, but hey, he was here in my mock draft, so I had to take him, and I went with Starling Thomas V out of UAB. This dude, his stats won't shock you. Honestly, it'll be hard for you to find a highlight reel of him, but ever since he is declared for the draft, his testing has been sky high, through the roof, and also he runs a 4.28 40. That's going to get every NFL scout's eyes. He also contributes to the special teams, which I would love because, as I mentioned, now that the Kansas City Chiefs are moving forward with Kadarius Toney focusing on the offense, Sky Moore fully focused on the offense, they need to find that returner. That may be Richie James, but at the end of the day, you got to continue to get depth because last thing I want is to worry every Sunday if special teams is going to cost us a game like it did last year. So best believe that Andy Reid, Brett Veach, and Dave Toub are teaming together to find a way to improve special teams. Thomas, though, he could be a good value, and some see him going early in the 4th round. So the fact that I have him in the 6th round would be a little bit of a steal. But NFL scouts, GMs are saying that one thing that's very, very impressive is his man-to-man skills. And it's something that you can rate him with some of the best top cornerbacks in this year's draft. Also, I wanted to focus on cornerback too because I don't think this year, but moving forward, L'Jarius Sneed is up in the air. I know it's scary to think Chiefs Kingdom, and it may be unfortunate. But with the contract extension looming, and we know how Brett Veach and the Kansas City Chiefs do with contract extension, L'Jarius Sneed might want his payday. And will Brett Veach get to that dollar amount? I don't know. But I do know one thing is Brett Veach is good at the draft, specifically in prior years to where he will address a position before someone's contract is due and see how they do their rookie year, and then you're replaced. So it's going to be interesting to see. If you see the Kansas City Chiefs draft a cornerback and earlier than the 6th round, they may be planning for something in the future, and it may be planning for L'Jarius Sneed's replacement. It's definitely something to keep your eyes on moving forward. Now, as we enter the 7th round of the mock draft, this is basically when everyone turns off their TVs. There's nothing to focus on. But the Kansas City Chiefs and Brett Veach make it a key point that you need to tune in and you need to focus on. And if we didn't learn from last year, Brett Veach knows how to find these hidden gem guys with Jalen Watson, Isaiah Pacheco, and even Nazeeh Johnson, who was playing later half of the year on the defensive side of the ball and in special teams. So if you're going to tune into this draft, don't just tune into round 1. Tune in round 1 to round 7 because Brett Veach, that's when he puts on a show. And right now, we're staying on the defensive side of the ball, and we're going to focus on DJ Johnson, edge out of Oregon. Now, this is a dude who had 6 sacks in Oregon with Oregon. He's a big, powerful dude. Honestly, we're in the 7th round, so I don't know too much about him. But I do know one thing. He's already caught the eyes of the Kansas City Chiefs scouts as he already has a top 30 visit. Now, at the end of the day, he may be a practice squad guy. It's something he's going to have to prove. But I do love that he has talent, he has the ability, and he's caught the scouts' eyes as well. And I wouldn't be too upset if the Kansas City Chiefs focus on edge still later in the draft. We saw them addressed in my mock draft with Uzma and Tapalatu. yeah, I'm going to keep struggling on that in round 1 and 2. But just because you address the D-line there never hurts to get many pass rushers. It's something the Kansas City Chiefs have struggled for years out, so just keep piling up. Chiefs Kingdom won't be mad at you whatsoever. But with the final pick for the Kansas City Chiefs in the 2023 NFL mock draft, I have them going quarterback. Quarterback out of TCU, Max Duggan. And I think this would be a really fun, solid pick. And honestly, this will help Shane Buechele at the end of the day. You need to give Shane Buechele competition. Do I expect Duggan to beat out Buechele? No, because the Kansas City Chiefs love Buechele. But at the end of the day, if Duggan proves that he can be an NFL caliber backup player or someone that deserves a spot on a 53-man roster, that's why you bring him in here. I don't think Shane Buechele just should upright be handed a backup position. Whether the Kansas City Chiefs sign a veteran guy, whether they draft a backup guy, which I wouldn't be surprised if they want to draft a backup as early as the 5th round and just have them duke it out, go back and forth, and we would have a quarterback camp battle. Who would have thunk it? A backup camp battle. And the thing I love about Duggan as well is that, man, he is like really athletically gifted. He's got a good arm, but his legs, it's what catches everyone's attention. And I think that's what catch Coach Reid's attention, Brett Veach's attention. And I think he'd be fun, very fun to watch in these training camp battles. And preseason games, I can already see Chiefs Kingdom just going nuts in the 4th quarter watching Duggan run 50 yards or something like that and then throw another 50 yards. It's the type of ability the dude has. You really wouldn't even need to play Patrick Mahomes in the preseason. It would just be Buechele versus Duggan, and then what's everyone's favorite position? The backup quarterback, because everyone loves to see these guys just go at it, and I think it would be fun. Buechele has a lot to prove as well, so light a little flame under him. Show him, hey, nothing's guaranteed, and if you want to be a backup, you do got huge shoes to fill, because Chad Henne was no joke whatsoever. Everyone just thought Chad Henne was your typical backup, but at the end of the day, he was crucial in 2 playoff runs, and specifically in this one where Mahomes got hurt, and he came in and basically sealed those games up. So Brett Veach, Coach Reid, they're going to find out, is Buechele that guy to where you could plug him in and he can still score? Or not, if not, do we need to bring someone in? Definitely best believe quarterback can be a draft interest for the Kansas City Chiefs later on in this draft. But with that, Chiefs Kingdom, as you see, I am long-winded. I need to catch my breath. But we got through this 7-round mock draft. Let's have it on the board right here, right now. Let's go through a quick breakdown. Y'all see it. Let me know how you feel about these selections. As you see, as we discussed, I went heavy with the defense in the first couple of rounds, and then the offense went on a run, and then we went back on the defensive side of the ball. I think I basically covered every hole that the Kansas City Chiefs had. Of course, you could plug, fill, get any backup role players that may need to be on this team, but I really like this draft right now. And honestly, I'm going to give you another 7-round mock draft next Sunday. It might be my final one. I don't know yet because we still got 11 days to go. Mock drafts are so fun, and once draft is over, that means you don't have them for another 365 days a year unless I want to do it for 2024, and that's not going to happen. I'm not going to jump that gun. But with that, Chiefs Kingdom, you let me know how you feel about this draft. You let me know if you like the selections, if you would have went a different route. Let me know some players that may have interested you in certain rounds. With that, I'm going to check out, but before I do, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. Give me that big thumbs up if you did like this video. Y'all take care. Peace.